welcome back. My name's Chris from We Communicate. I'm a French teacher. We specialize in teaching French to speakers of English specifically, and we do this by being bilingual. We make your journey into French easier. Now this video has an odd title. Why should I avoid learning French with a conversation partner? There's a bit of background to this story. As you might know, I'm a real business, a real teacher in real reality, and customers really do phone me up. And when they phone me up, they say some interesting things to me. They're interested in learning French, and they share with me some worries they have and some questions about what they've learned so far, how would it be better learning with me. And they say things that surprise me. The nature of their worry is surprising to me. And they'll ask things such as points of trivia. And they'll say things such as, oh, I heard that informal French is not like that, and I once went to France and I said oui, and I heard that no one says oui, and I'm supposed to say where. And I hear similar things such as the difference between official French and slang. I hear... what else do I hear? Yes, another one I heard a few days ago, I can't remember who told me, but a few days ago someone said, oh, apparently no one says ne pas in French. Because when I went to France, someone told me, oh no, you should never say ne pas, like je n'aime pas. Oh no, people skip ne. Oh yeah, no, never say ne. People say j'aime pas, that's the way you say it. And I'm hearing these things and I'm saying, well, who told you this? Why do you believe this? And of course they tell me, well, it was a 25-year-old who happened to be doing a bit of tutoring, French tutoring on the side, and, well, since they're a native speaker of French, I mean, why not believe them? So this is the purpose of this video. Now, I am well aware that it's always bad taste when you're in business to speak badly about the business of someone else, be they a competitor or in a similar business. But I've said many times, and I still say it, language learning, the industry of language learning, if you can call it an industry, is a very, very shady business. It's a very opaque business, not in a dishonest way, but because it's utterly unregulated and everyone has complete freedom to step into the trade and improvise themselves teachers of languages. The purpose of this video today is to hope to show you facets of language teaching of which you might not be aware, of which the science of linguistics, which is not something everyone talks about, it's not the conversation you have next to the water fountain at work. So I'll be talking about all these things in this video, and I think it's an important video to watch, because I think it will save you time, it will save you disappointments, it will save you money, and it will save you a lot of misunderstandings. So I propose we start. Why should we avoid learning with a conversation partner? Let's go. When I was at university as a freshman, I was put in a position of having to learn German fast. And at the time I was studying for a master's degree in linguistics and literature, and German was my major. The problem was, there weren't any classes to teach us German, but they did expect us to speak it at the exam, and rather well. I hadn't yet completed my degree at that time, and was only starting to learn about languages and the different aspects of linguistics. For all intents and purposes, I was inexperienced in that field. My guess was as good as the guess of the man off the street. So I did what seemed logical to me. I found some conversation partners to practice my German with. The reaction of wanting to speak in order to learn is one that everyone has. I recently wanted to help my mother-in-law to revive the German she had when she was 3 years old before she came to America as a little girl. And she flatly answered, yes, but I have no one to speak to. As grounded as this remark might seem, it does contain two implicit conditions. Well, the first is that speaking is the tool by which we learn, and the second is that speaking is the inevitable condition in order to learn. In other words, no speak, no learn. It's both the tool and the crucial condition for the learning to ever happen. When I started my own conversation exchanges to learn German, I thought like this also. I went with what made the most sense. So with my partner, we met in a public place, usually a cafe, sat face to face and started to talk when it wasn't online. I remember that I was quite amazed at myself for speaking German. The language had become real, so to speak. And in my mind at least, I was achieving the highest level. I was speaking like a real German. But despite this, I always left my conversations with a feeling of uncertainty. I had spoken, but I wasn't quite sure what I had accomplished. What exactly did I know versus what there was left to know? How much had I moved forward after each conversation? In my conversations, I was navigating in the dark. As a non-linguist, I was completely navigating in the dark. The problem was that my interpretation of language was shared by my conversation partners. To them too, a language was a collection of words. They didn't know how German functioned on a technical level, and certainly couldn't explain anything grammatical. We were, my conversation partner and myself, both paddling in pitch black, but utterly convinced that we were achieving something. We both lost interest precisely because we were not achieving anything. So what was the problem exactly? Neither me nor my partner had a sufficient understanding of language as a science. We didn't know which problem we were trying to solve. We thought we were going somewhere, but we had no measuring tool to tell us how far we had travelled or what the final destination was. We didn't know if our conversations were benefiting our understanding of the language. We were acting instinctively and utterly not knowing if we were majoring in minor things. And I love this expression, majoring in minor things. We had no idea if we were even accomplishing anything at all. But we figured that if we spoke enough, something was bound to happen. But we didn't know what. Like, keep going and I suppose something will happen, we thought. Keep walking and you'll get somewhere. Inevitably, we focused on details of the language, not knowing if it was time put to good use. A point of detail to us had as much importance to our eyes as a major structural part of the language. Let's now talk about the necessity, not the advantage, the necessity of being linguist. As a qualified linguist now, and a language teacher, these qualifications and this experience which I now have brought me much more than be able to name things with brainy words. The true value in being a university linguist is to not see language as a noise. It's not just a collection of words and sounds and noise. It's a sort of filtered interpretation of a language. You cut away the noise and you see what's important. It's almost as if you and I took a handful of sand at the beach and just saw sand. We don't know, it looks like sand to me. A specialist in geology will see the components of the sand, the rocks, the seashells, and the glass. And that's what linguistics does for you. There are many teachers, tutors, conversation partners, obviously, who are not linguists and don't have this understanding of language. These are the people who cost you money in the long run. These are the people who confuse you with their own muddled view of the language they teach. These are the teachers who will propose how to say things like a real native, or they'll speak about French expressions without even understanding what it means. They themselves do not understand what they're talking about. They believe in things like real-world French versus textbook French. They think that the local thing they say in French becomes a major principle to pass on to you. They've not been through the rigorous training that university proposes. They are witch doctors. They are charlatans. Their lesson plans will contain a lot of trivia. They'll typically look at what they do as native speakers and assume that it's all useful to you. Some of these witch doctors have reached international fame in the field of language teaching, and they've become household names. None of their businesses ever achieve to teach you a language, but learners keep buying. Probably because they don't realise that there is such a thing as a science of language that's called linguistics. At the moment, the scene of language teaching is as if any person with a pair of pliers could set up as a dentist. They are nothing but village sorcerers who teach you French based on a concoction of albino frogs and newt's tails. They are witches. Conversation partners and teachers who are not university qualified will confuse you for the simple reason that they themselves are confused. They don't know this because no one's ever told them, and they assume that because they are native speakers, they are at the highest level. Let's now talk about the effects of Franco-French culture and the influence it has on conversation partners, language tutors, and language schools. To those who are not insiders of the French culture, by which I mean the country and the culture that comes with being a francophone, I think it's important to understand that the way French is taught in schools is very academic. It's not like English, which comparatively is not taken seriously at all. There's also the fact that French is a matter of cultural pride in the francophone countries, because of a period of international glory and fame in the 19th and 20th centuries. The King of France, Louis XIV, wanted to make French a tool with which to advertise the glory and superiority of France in foreign countries. French wasn't just a language, but rather seen as a form of art that was actively supported by the government. It was meant to be the most beautiful and perfect language. Historically, there has always been a lot of legislation around the French language. So through the centuries, all of this has had the effect of creating a sort of subconscious matter of pride in the minds of speakers of French, and especially of France. We could say that in every French citizen there sleeps a French teacher. They have less hesitation to step into the role of corrector, even towards other native speakers. It's happened to me, a teenager just correcting me. I say, sorry, I've been speaking this for 40 years. You might know that up to the 2000s, the French had what they called les blagues belges, jokes about the Belgians, or les blagues suisses, jokes about the Swiss, which often depicted the less than able neighbouring countries who were using their language, quote unquote, and the French jokers would imitate imaginary Belgian or Swiss accents, as if to say that they couldn't hope to match the French perfection. Have you ever heard an equivalent joke in English? Have you ever heard an English joke about how Australians speak? That is a French facet. And I'm speaking about this to illustrate that it has been in the collective French subconscious for centuries that they are the masters of their language, and it's a matter of pride, and they know better than most people how French works. And if you've heard these jokes, you'll know that they typically used to imitate, up to the 2000s I'd say, they used to say "Bonjour, je suis Suisse, c'est l'histoire d'un Suisse," which no Swiss really speaks like that. And the Belgians were "Salut et bonjour, je suis belge une fois." It used to be very acceptable in France. But it says something. It's not just an anecdote, it says something about a frame of mind. Let's move on. This is where it gets important. Learners of French, such as yourself, should be very, very aware and extremely cautious of the fact that francophones will see no problem to them stepping into the role of teacher even without the slightest notion of linguistics. They will not see a problem. I speak French, therefore I am. What they see as true becomes your truth. What they see as correct will become your notion of correct. Whether it's with a French teacher or a conversation partner, there are some very real risks involved that come from the absence of an understanding of language through the science of linguistics. The risks are a waste of time, a waste of money, and picking up bad habits. Even the best known online language platforms fail to offer anything even remotely linguistic. What the little guy or independent tutor is doing beneath the radar in the shadows is anyone's guess. We can just see the top of the iceberg, the summit of the iceberg. What is the true extent of the problem? I don't know. Conversation partners seem to offer a logical solution to a logical problem, but often acts as imprints of your interpretation of the language. We could ask ourselves whose language germs you are picking up. And that's an expression that I invented. Whose language germs are you picking up without knowing? Being a native speaker is not a skill in itself. Everyone is a native speaker of at least one language. The help you need stretches far beyond being told what is wrong from what is right according to someone's personal appreciation. What you need is professional guidance. Thanks very much for listening. My name is Chris, and now I think I'll comment on this article. And you can find this article on the website. I really hope it was useful. Thank you for watching. I think you are doing yourself a favour by watching this. I think it's a 35 minutes put to good use. It will save you, I think, money, time, disappointments. So what I mean to say in everyday terms, I get a lot of phone calls. I run a business. I teach French. The things I hear from prospective students are sometimes questions to which I don't have an answer because I didn't see the question coming. Such as, is it true that there's like a street French and a formal French? Is it true that I should use the negative in this way? Is it true? But what happens is there is a science of language called linguistics. Now the advantage of this is to see clearly, to understand the dynamics between the words. It's no longer an ocean of words. It's not a noise of foreign words. There are dynamics. You understand the dynamics, the building blocks, the structure of a language. And my experience as a teacher allows me to improve and make it even easier. It's thanks to this, call it a flashlight, call it a clear vision. It's a clearer vision. It's a higher level of vision into a language and understanding what holds the language together. The tutors, the language partners, won't know this. What they have on their side is an instinctive knowledge. They'll know instinctively what's right from wrong, but what happens very often is that they won't know the hierarchy between the different mistakes or where to start learning a language. They won't clearly see the end goal. They'll be lost. They are navigating in the dark. And they'll point out trivia, but they'll put trivia at the same level as something that might be very important. But they won't know, because they are not linguists. They cannot know. That's the big difference between having a proper qualification, seeing clearly within languages, and not. At the moment, anyone can set up shop and become a language teacher, and I keep saying it's a very, very opaque business, a very shady business, not because it's dishonest, but precisely because anyone can become a language teacher. All these teachers, these tutors and these conversation partners will genuinely believe they're doing you a service, but they don't understand the dynamics, they don't understand the hierarchy, they don't understand the building blocks of a language. You have to be very cautious what you see on YouTube, on the internet. Tell you something else. Where's my phone? Can anyone spot my phone? It's there. I have a friend. My good friend Pierre, his name is actually. He's a qualified linguist. He's more qualified than I am. He has 2 master's degrees. He's finishing his PhD. He speaks French as a native, Polish as a native, English. What's the other one? German. I did German with him. So that's 4. Is there a 5th one? I don't know. Yeah, obviously he knows Dutch. We laugh about these things. I listened to a well-known French teacher. His name is Paul Noble. We laugh. I sent him on WhatsApp. I have it here. I said, listen to that, Pierre. You'll burst out laughing. I have a recording here.
Leçon 1, notion de base.
Like, leçon 1, notion de base. Lesson 1, basic notions. Now, I paused it and I said to Pierre, listen to this, they're already considering that there are basic notions versus advanced notions. Well, obviously there are. You wouldn't study like the past imperative or something, or the past conditional before, but that's a very non-linguistic qualification. In their non-knowledge, they will consider that bonjour, hello, is more basic than something else. Sorry, but that's not linguistic at all. It seems to make sense, but it makes no sense. Why are some notions more basic than others? Notion de base. So if you step into a language, like if I were to learn Spanish, I would have to learn hola first because it's more basic than something else. Well, no, it's not the way it works. If I were to learn Spanish, I'd know exactly what I would look like for. I would know exactly what I'm looking for, but it certainly wouldn't be hola. It certainly wouldn't. That's a minor problem. That's trivia. And this is trivia. Listen to this, please.
You familiar.
Tu,
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 tu.
He, it.
il,
You know what the problem is? Because these people are not linguists, they've not been trained, they've not been taught that the way you use intonation influences the message. So, and this goes to for all these people who think that AI can teach you a language. They are not linguists, they are ignorant of the science of language, and they don't know that the way you say something, the intonation, contains information. I'll take as an example, there is a man in the garden. The way I say it says something about my message and how I feel about my message. The intonation counts for a lot. For this reason, you cannot have a voice recognition whatever to correct your accent. It does not exist. It cannot exist. And the people who sell you this are ignorant. If I say, oh, there's a man in the garden, I'm expressing what? Surprise, there's a man in the garden. Oh, there's a man in the garden. Oh, there's a man in the garden. That's a different tone. There's a man in the garden. Do I seem surprised? Oh, there's a man in the garden. There's a man in the garden. There's a man in the garden. I don't believe you. There's a man in the garden. There's a man in the garden. You see, I've just said 4 different things with one sentence. So these apps who tell you to say, il y a un monsieur dans le jardin. How are you supposed to say this message, please? How are you supposed to even say isolated nouns? Jardin. Le jardin. It makes no linguistic sense. None at all. And they are only making public their ignorance. And all the top results that you get on Google, the biggest language platforms, I've seen them all. They are witch doctors, they are sorcerers, they are jokers, and they're wasting your time, and they're planting trivia in your head. And that's why you still don't speak French. I'm getting cruel here. No, I'm not. I'm very nice. 2, 3 years, 4 years later, it's not working. It's not working. It never has worked. I think I have another one here.
il a traduit 2 fois par il.
Yeah, we were talking about the translations which were utterly nonsensical.
Notion de base.
Okay, we're talking about the translations which were utterly nonsensical, because even in his translations of pronouns it didn't work. If you want to make real progress, you need a qualified teacher and one who has a background in linguistics. I tried conversation partners, I tried them a lot for months and months. I thought I was getting somewhere. I really wasn't getting anywhere at all. And you know why? Because there wasn't a compass, there wasn't a flashlight. I was making sounds with my mouth. I'm speaking German. I wasn't getting anywhere because I didn't know what I knew versus what I didn't know. I didn't have a map of German. And this is typically what happens. There's too much trivia that I see on YouTube or these learning platforms. Okay, I think you've got the point, at least I hope so. Whoever you learn French with, linguistics, that should be the determining factor. Okay, thank you very much for watching. My name's Chris from We Communicate. Send me a recording of your voice on WhatsApp or by email and I'll tell you exactly what your French teacher should have told you, and I'll tell you what your level is and what you could be correcting. Thanks a lot. You can really find me in real reality. I really am a teacher. Goodbye. My name is Chris. Thanks for watching.